Okay, good. All right. Hello, again. Yes, I'm Emily Oberman, and I'm very happy to be here at this conference. It's a pleasure and an honor. It's a terrific conference. My talk today is called Design It Forward, which I thought was sort of a cute name that I couldn't get out of my head, but really the idea behind this, I'm like Donald Trump, I invented the phrase. Sorry. Or because. And what this means to me is that when you start something out, when you're working on a job, when you start your career, when you start anything, you don't know where it's going to end. You don't know where you're going to go. And so I have always felt like I like to say yes to as many things as I can that feel good, that feel like we can do something together, us and the client, that also I feel like I care about or I'm deeply invested in. So even starting from sort of the beginning of my life, it's all sort of feels like this like steamroll. And I'm not a Zen person, but I do feel like one thing leads to another. And we should all try to keep that in mind as we move forward through life, because you don't know where you're going to meet someone, whether they're on the way up and you're on the way down, or you're on the way up and they're on the way down. Anyway, because of Cooper Union, which is an art school in the East Village in New York, my parents met each other. There they are at their judo club, practicing judo, both black belts, in the 1950s, way before I was born. But because Arlene met Mo, there's now me. And I went to Cooper Union, class of '85. Don't know if Maria Giudice is here, but she also. There's me at Cooper in my Molly Ringwald phase. So because I went to Cooper Union, I was able to get a job at one of the most amazing design studios in the world, which was M & Company, led by Tibor Kalman, who was a insane, genius, creative weirdo. And so here's a picture of me with Tibor and some other insane, genius, creative weirdos, Dean Lubensky and Scott Stoll, back in M & Company days. And because I was lucky enough to get to work on great projects that Tibor was passionate about, that he cared about, and he taught me a way of thinking which was not about the money. It was always about solving the problem. And I'm sure everybody says that in every talk, but it's true. Sometimes a client will come in and think they know what they need, but really they don't. And it's our job to tell them what they do need. And I learned that from Tibor. Because of M & Company, I was able to start my own design studio with my partner, Bonnie Siegler. Here's us in the 90s, looking very 90s. And we continued that sort of vein of doing work for love. We had no idea how to get clients, but when a project came in, we would sort of sink our teeth into it and stick with it. And so to that end, because of Number 17, we started to work on Saturday Night Live. When we started working on Saturday Night Live, they sort of called us in and said, will you do some type for some parody commercials? And we did, and it was crazy and round the clock. And because it's like Vegas, there's no sense of time. I've had meetings with Lorne Michaels at 3 o'clock in the morning. I kid you not. So we started doing that, and then we sort of said, like, hey, it's getting to be time for the opening sequence. Who's doing the type? And they said, well, we don't know yet. And anyway, Lorne was thinking about doing a new logo. So we looked at the history of Saturday Night Live, and this is logos that they had had in the past. And this was the current logo, which felt very like nightclubby and scruffy and scrappy. And we sort of decided that SNL, by this point, which was 97, I think, by this point, didn't want to feel like a scrappy thing. It wanted to be the Blue Note jazz of comedy shows. And so we went and cleaned it all up, and then we realized that Saturday Night Live is just Saturday Night Live, single word, so we took the word space out. And then 10 years later, Lorne said, I need a new logo, so we thought, oh, how about another onomatopoeia, Saturday Night Live? And Lorne said yes, and we put it on the show, and a week later he said, no, I don't like it. So we said, how about Saturday Night Live? This way, still onomatopoeia, because Don Pardo had that way of saying it, and he said, I love it. And we put it on the show, and a week later, he said, still not right. So then, fortunately, the words Saturday Night and Live have fewer descending amounts of letters in order, so we could still keep that sort of Saturday Night Live thing, while now making a nice chunky square that reminded him of the heyday of Saturday Night Live for some reason. So that became the logo, which lasted a very long time. I'm just going to play you a little montage of the beauty of Saturday Night Live, and this is kind of what I mean about going at something hard, is reinventing the same idea every year. Like, oh, it's a party, it's at night, it's a club, it's New York, what's it going to look like, how's it going to be done? Doing that over and over is actually thrilling to me. It makes me panic, but it makes me thrilled, also because they don't ask us to start doing it till 2 weeks before the show airs. So here's a little, because who knew there was going to be an open that they needed for the season premiere? Here's a little montage.
It's Saturday Night Live! 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 It's Saturday Night Live!
Anyway, because of Saturday Night Live and Number 17, I was able to happily become a partner at Pentagram. Number 17 was around for about 17 years, and when it was time for Number 17 to hang up its cleats, a phrase I have just learned to use, I was approached by Pentagram and lucky enough to become a partner. And so once at Pentagram, I continued to work on Saturday Night Live. Oh, here's everybody. Here's the whole gang, 20 of us on the rooftop in New York. And so when they approached us, Don Pardo had just died, so there was no more Saturday Night Live. So we had to think of another idea for a new logo when Lauren decided he wanted a new logo for the 40th anniversary. So we decided to take something that was both architectural and also like the flashing lights of neon signs and sort of combine those two things. So it's street and buildings and lights. And also, it had to be, we wanted this aesthetic for the 40th anniversary. So we did this logo that jiggles around like that and still feels like SNL. And that allowed Mary Ellen Matthews, who does the bumpers, to use it in any way and have it still feel like the show. Still feel like the brand, I should say, sorry. And then we did some tests for what the opening sequence should be like. We liked the idea of it feeling analog because it was 40 years old, so we wanted to go back and pretend like some of those opening sequences I showed that the videotape had deteriorated. Believe it or not, that's the best quality I can get of those. And so this was on purpose to sort of feel like it had that TV degenerative quality. And so
It's Saturday Night Live!
also this year was the first time we ever took a helicopter out and shot the city from above, as opposed to, it's always been at street level. So we were able to sort of get a new perspective on the city. You get the idea. Anyway, because of Saturday Night Live, we also did 30 Rock, Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, which was really fun to work on. And again, the Donald Trump hair tousling thing. I really I felt that in my soul. And then we also worked on, so through 30 Rock, we met Tina Fey, and then she asked us to work on this show that she was creating called Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. And we did two really good things for Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. One was, she said, she seems, anybody watch Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt? Woo, it's good. So she said, Kimmy seems like Daffy, and she's gone through this horror. It's actually a really dark show, because she was, a hostage for 15 years, and but she seems goofy, but she's strong. She's a strong woman. She knows what she wants. She's willing to fight for it. So it's not about a princess, though she has princessy qualities, which is why we kept that little, what we call the sparkle fart, in the open. But we also found the word able in there. So the whole idea of the identity is that you're growing into being able. And that's kind of what Kimmy is doing over the course of the show. So that was one thing that they loved. And the other thing was they wanted to do this thing that showed how Kimmy's story had gone viral. They wanted to say, like, the mole women. And so what they did was they wanted to do a fake one of those Songify the News pieces. And so our big idea was, why don't we actually get the guys, Shmo Yoho, who do those, bring them in and have them actually make the song and the opening sequence working with Tina's husband, Jeff Richmond, who wrote the song. And they sort of like they had not thought about that. And we contacted them and they were all in. So they ended up writing, working on the song with us, and that became the opening sequence.
Unbreakable, they alive, damn it, it's a miracle. Unbreakable, they alive, damn it, with females all strong and unbreakable, they alive, damn it, it's a miracle. Unbreakable, they alive, damn it. That's gonna be fascinating transition. Damn it.
While I was working on this, I have two little kids. They're twins, and they were like 5 at the time. And they were just walking around the house all the time going, damn it! Anyway, because of Unbreakable, Kimmy, Schmidt, and Saturday Night Live and other things, we met a woman named Audrey Gelman who was very interested in creating this thing called The Wing. The Wing is meant to be a social club for women, sort of based on the idea of classic social clubs that were in the 20s, but it's meant to be not just, it started out as the idea that, like, if you're a woman, I'm guessing this is true, that, like, you've had to, like, change your hair and your shoes in the bathroom of a Starbucks before a meeting because you didn't have any place else to go. So the idea is for this to be a place like that where you can do that, but it's also meant to be a place for women to do sort of badass things, to protest, to get together, to have a voice, to write, to learn, to read. And it's all this sort of very uplifting. Originally, when we started talking to her, Hillary was running for president. By the time The Wing opened, Hillary was not president, so it became sort of a different, there was at the beginning this sort of like, idea of it, and then it became this sort of idea. Audrey is a very smart, very driven woman who knows what she wants, and she knew from the beginning when she was getting her venture capital money and all of that, that design was a really important way to express the brand. So we did a lot of research, and we looked at women's suffrage movement and how that was voiced, and the idea of power and strength in women. We also looked at fun things and cool things, because like the balance is really important. Like when Bonnie and I had our company, like literally we could be talking about something really serious, about some New York Times op-ed thing we would be, and I would be like, oh, new lipstick? In the middle of it, and that was totally fine. That's just who we are. So this could be a little bit of both. And language, a little bit of both. Language was a really important part of it, humor and strength. And so we just sort of jumped in and started working on the identity. We had this idea that the Wing could be many different things on any given day. And the idea that it contains multitudes, Audrey was very into this idea of multitudes, which is from a line from a Walt Whitman poem, but that the Wing could contain multitudes just like the women it serves. So we went and we looked at all the women, both real and fictional, who could possibly be members of the Wing, and decided to then sort of give them each a personality in a different way, and let these W's sort of convey the badassedness that was the Wing. And we honed in on one W, this one, as sort of the icon for the whole thing. And that became the identity for the Wing. And what's good about that W is it's strong and curvy and bold and weird. And that sort of encompasses all the things that the Wing is meant to be. And this is our typeface. We wanted something strong like Bureau Grotesque, and the Bianco Sans and Sans Serif gave it a sort of light. And the palette is based on things that are literary and books, and also sweetness. We worked with them on, and again, this is not, they didn't hire us to do strategy, they just asked us to come with them on this journey. And so we worked with them to help write their manifesto, which is this piece here, and then design it as a broadsheet. And work with them on the space and getting the branding into the space. Here it is, here's the broadsheet, here's a table, a terrazzo table with our logo in it, and do signage for things like personal space. But we also started working with them on this idea of the membership box, which is the box that, you know, when you join and you become a member, you get this box. And in it are things like your membership card and the manifesto and a little wing pin and a deck of cards that says game, recognized game. And we had this idea for a pin that was like 1-800 Hotline-Wing, and that made everybody laugh. And they said, oh, we should, you know, we did it in a proof of concept presentation, and they said, oh, we should really do that. And everything sort of rolled from there. In our proof of concept thing, we did a bag that just said bag lady, and they loved that, and that went in the membership box. And so we had this idea of pencils that were all different women we admired that were both literary, and again, Lisa Simpson's sort of our spirit animal. And we just kept making this stuff. My interests include music, science, justice, animals, shapes, and feelings. And as we began to make this stuff, Audrey said, this is all great. We should see, people are asking for this. We should sell this stuff. And so without it being a plan in the beginning, we ended up working with them on the merchandise that they sell. And we sort of make all of it. Not all of it, they collaborate with artists as well, but we go in and we just have as many ideas as we can. And this is not a job for money. I think there are two, my husband always used to say that I have the superpower of panic. Panic is my superpower. Like, I'm always worried about something, I'm worried that it's not right, I'm worried that we haven't done enough. I realize that my other superpower is insinuation. Not insinuation like, oh, those shoes? But insinuation like getting myself into some place and not letting go. I think Emily said yesterday, be loyal. I am extremely loyal and extremely interested in working on stuff as it continues to evolve. So we did things like more totes. This was a line that actually Audrey came up with that we sort of ran with. We did merit badges for joining the wing, and headbands and pins and a wing necklace, which I'm wearing. And stickers and keychains and new merch. And the idea of the wing is that it's meant to be very, very for everyone. So there's also this photo shoot of people who we think sort of typify what the wing should look like. And again, the sort of like saying fuck as often as we can, and asking for respect. And then this is the new line of merch that we're doing for them now. This is a parody of an Ed Ruscha piece. He enjoys the company of women. We've moved into onesies. Audrey likes to say it's not a sorority, it's a coven. So here, now we went from pencils to pens, and postcards, and things, and funny pins, like the nanny logo, pajamas. Thank you for shopping at the Wing. This is a classic shopping bag in New York City. I don't know if you know it. And then we also do their social media stuff for them. So they do a lot of it themselves, but we make tons and tons of stuff that they just sort of put up at random, and it all involves sort of insinuating the Wing into history in different ways. My favorite, my other favorite, The New Yorker, and then it's always ladies' night at the Wing, and that's the Wing. So getting back to Saturday Night Live, just because many things stem from there, we were approached by a company called Film Independent. Film Independent is a not-for-profit organization, kind of like an AIGA for independent filmmakers. And they came to us saying, like, we're sure Pentagram, we can't afford Pentagram, but we need a new identity. And I said, of course you can. We sort of work on a Robin Hood theory. We have big clients like MasterCard, and we have small clients like The Wing and Film Independent. And so and I love film, I love movies, I love everything about that industry. I love the smell of the grease paint. And so they came to us, and this was their identity. And I asked them why the grease pencil, and they said, I don't know. And I said, just Helvetica. They said, yeah, maybe you could just clean it up a little. And then they also showed me they have a full program. They're the people who do the Spirit Awards. They do the LA Film Festival. They do a lecture series at LACMA with Elvis Mitchell. They do forums that are classes that you can take, and they do another series called Director's Close-Up. They do all of this stuff, and it all looks like scrappy, seat of your pants, I don't even know why. And they couldn't even explain to me why. So they kept saying, so we began to look into research. And we noticed that in a lot of movie posters, sort of classic movie posters, there's this little detail of using a lowercase I. I'm not sure why, but it comes up a lot. Of course, it comes up in Godard films, and it came up in Birdman, but it seems to be a trope. And so we thought that that would be a nice thing to take. And so working with the people at Grilly Type Foundry, we created a font for Film Independent that I named Font Independent. Best part of the job. And we came back to them and said, the truth of the matter is we've done a lot of work. We did a ton of strategic work for them. Again, it's a word that I use. We used to just call it work. But we did a lot of backstory. We interviewed a lot of people about their identity and who they were, and they were concerned that maybe they should change their name, and they were very worried that their name was too long. And what we decided in the end was that their name wasn't too long, their logo was too long. So they really liked that. And what we did was we created this system for them. I know, don't use flush left type. Well, there it is, all flush left. But what I liked about this was we were able to take their identity and make it feel quirky, but make it feel modern and clean and strong, and not like something that gets done in a scrappy sort of way. I mean, you're scrappy and they're scrappy. Independent film is still scrappy, but it's not scrappy in a grease pencil brick wall sort of way. It's scrappy in a highly technological, highly collaborative way. And so we wanted a way to have them feel that. And the cool thing about it was, because of this, we were able to make a very flexible system, so each of their programs was able to sort of fit in any space that it needed to. And each one, of course, had its own color. So that seemed to work. There we go, sorry. Well, and we started a campaign for them, which is I Am Film Independent. So it works on two levels, I am film and I am independent. Again, this wasn't something that they asked us to do, it was just something that we thought of that then became their launch campaign. And we iterated, oy, who am I? Iterated through all sorts of things. We worked on their manifesto with them, and found a way to pull those eyes out to make it feel more personable. The eye sort of represents a person, it represents the individual, and again, it has that heritage in filmmaking. And of course, we did a bag and a mug and posters for their different events. And then the website, which was a horrible mess, we sort of cleaned up so that you could find your way through divisions. And we talked to them we actually work with them on changing the language of how they talk to their audience to be sort of more friendly and to be more personal, because that's who they are. And so, because of Film Independent, I may have mentioned that they are the people who put on the Spirit Awards. The Spirit Awards is the anti-Oscars. It is the day before the Oscars. It's on a beach in the daytime. It's casual, you drink, you eat. It's very diverse, it's very inclusive. It's all independent filmmakers. Now, a lot of big films are still considered independent, so there are a lot of big movie stars and stuff. And so we said to them at the very beginning, okay, we'll do your free job as long as you also let us do your free Spirit Awards identity and all the packaging for the show itself. And they were like, sure. And so again, this is sort of me sort of insinuating myself because I loved the job and I loved the client, I wanted to like continue to grow with them and help them. And of course, they give back. They are wonderful clients, they are interesting, they are smart, they are engaged. That's something really important too. I have clients who are horrible. And you don't want to do extra stuff for them. Like, you don't want to do that. You don't want to say like, yeah, I'll throw that in for free. You want to say like, yeah, I'll charge you 10 times more for that little thing. But when you're, or at least me, but when you're good and open and know who you are, the difference it makes is like night and day. Anyway, so we did the Spirit Awards for them in 2016, and remember, this is what it looked like, and all of their Spirit Awards packaging was always like, you know, jaunty angle, you know, it sort of looked like comic relief, if anyone remembers what that looked like. It was all like spray painted on a wall. So we wanted to get them away from that. We wanted them to do something that felt modern and clean, but respective of filmmaking and the style of film. So for the first year, we wanted to sort of highlight the idea of the blue, which is the color for the Spirit Awards, and the red, which is the color of Film Independent, and use that also quirky, the breaking up of the type to sort of say we are different and we are unusual. And these are the cards to invite members to vote. And these are the tickets, and this is the cover of the program. And this is the back cover of the program with their manifesto. And then we did all the graphics for the show. And each one is meant to sort of represent a different aspect of filmmaking, a different sort of abstract. And we wanted to do it all with typography because we really wanted people to understand that the brand was changing, and we wanted to be able to tell that story through the brand without sort of bringing something else in. Also, the set designers used our identity to design the set that year, and so they had these eye people all over it. And here is what we did.
Thanks for letting me share your room with you, Kate.
I can't believe we're hosting the Spirit Awards.
Oh, what the hell?
Oh, they have Fiji water. Yes!
So then, just because we just finished this, we did this year's as well. And again, the idea of taking the same idea and doing it in a different way is really appealing to me. So we decided that this year, because it was on a beach in the daytime, we should emphasize the lightness and the whiteness of it, or the brightness, I shouldn't say, not the whiteness. And so here's the program, here's the ticket. We also put everything on it. We did a sort of Russian constructivist thing with all the angles. And here's this year's.
The film world's event of the year. Coming to you live from a temporary tent on the beach in the middle of the day.
I don't know you a thing, baby. I don't know you a thing.
So because of all of that, the thing that I didn't think about is film independent, like the AIGA or whatever the Canadian version of the AIGA is. I think it's still the AIGA. The board that hired us to do the film independent work is made up of all people who used to be members or are still members of Film Independent but have gone on to success in their careers. And I wasn't really thinking about this, but one day, the woman who was the head of the task force that hired us called me. Her name was Sue Kroll, and I hadn't even registered, but she was the head of marketing at Warner Brothers. And she said, I'm having a little trouble with a logo. Could you help me out? It's for a new movie, and it's probably a new franchise, and we've tried a bunch of stuff, and it's just not working. Would you mind taking a look? And I said, of course. I didn't even know what it was. And she said, great. It's called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and it's JK Rowling's new prequel to the Harry Potter series. And I was sort of like, what? First of all, because that sort of world of identity is kind of not in our wheelhouse, like that whole like Harry Potter lightning bolt sort of thing is not like what I think of. But huge fan, love the work, love the books. And also love this woman. She was such a wonderful client that we, of course, said, absolutely. So we went all in. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, in case you don't know, is a textbook that they read in Harry Potter, and then JK Rowling had this idea to take the story of the book, the man who wrote the book, Newt Scamander, and turn him into sort of a hero who comes to America in the early 20s in search of beasts for his. He's a magizoologist, and he has a magizoo, and so he needs to capture creatures from all over the world. So he comes to New York, where he encounters forces of darkness and things that are different. Like, they don't call them muggles in the United States; they call them no-mages. Anyway, great, totally fascinating. So we went and we looked at what what beasts look like in the world of Harry Potter, as well as we knew that we would have to have something sort of iconic like this. And again, in my sort of like, I will go anywhere. I like to think that we don't have a style, that we have just an idea, and that we'll go where the idea needs to go. And I think that that's an important sort of differentiation between, knowing what something is going to look like at the beginning and not knowing. Also, we looked at what New York was like in the 20s. And then we did a whole shitload of logos because we were just really into the idea of it. And as we worked, they were very prescriptive. They liked this one. They liked this one. They liked this weird one. And they sort of liked things in this one and things in this one. And then they sort of asked us to sort of, not Frankenstein, but to sort of keep going. And in the end, we created this, which I know seems like a weird thing, but I actually love it with all my heart and soul because I feel like it does the right thing. It takes one of the beasts and it makes an iconic statement that becomes recognizable everywhere. And I, of course, didn't also realize that this would literally be everywhere. We did a monogram for them, and then we started to do posters, but we also designed a font. And this was the first time, the Grilly one, we worked with the Grilly type people to sort of evolve a font, but this was something that we drew from scratch. And the idea was that there was a hairy version, a beastie version, and a non-beastie version, so you could sort of mix and match as things were needed. So you could have yikes, or you could have yikes. And because we did that, they then took that and translated it into all different languages, which I am still constantly amused by. And then the thing that I didn't expect was when they made the trailer for the movie, I didn't think that they would, I thought, oh, they're going to use our typeface, that's going to be great. And I just have a small clip from the first trailer, which I laughed my head off when I saw it.
It was open? Just a smidge.
Mr. Scamander. cracks me up every time. So then, because that went so well, they came to us and said, we have a property, we've got an identity only for 4 years, but we think we made a mistake. This is the logo. It feels very corporate. It doesn't feel like something a comic book fan would gravitate towards. Zack Snyder, one of the directors at Warner Brothers, said, I don't want to put that on, I don't want to wear that on a t-shirt. I want a logo that I want to wear on a t-shirt. That's what a DC Comics logo should be. This didn't look like DC Comics, this looked like DC Corporate. So we said, great. And we, of course, looked at what DC does in general and all the different kinds of properties that they have and all the different places that this would be. But it was important to us in terms of being fans of comic books and comic book fans to look at the heritage of the DC logo. So we looked at all of these. And honestly, when they first approached me, I thought, let's just take the 1976 Milton Glaser logo, put 7 stars on it for the Justice League, and move on. But because that's the logo of my youth. But we couldn't do that for various reasons, legal and internal, and so we had to come up with something new. And so what we decided to do was to take a little bit of everything, to find a way to create a logo that was dumb, dead simple, dumbass, as I like to say, dead simple, and able to have a little bit of the heritage of all of these logos peeking through it. Oh, I had this other thing, which is Marvel is a red rectangle, DC is a blue circle. And this is what we did. And so that seems really like sort of like dumbass, and then when it came out on the internet, they just released this little thing, and everyone was like, ugh, what is that? And I'll show you what it is. It's all of them. We took the stars, we hid the stars in there. We took the serifs, we hid the serifs in there. We took the form of this logo and hid that in there. We wanted it to relate to Superman, so we made it chiseled and touched the edges. We wanted to relate to Batman, so we stuck his ears in there, and we stuck the curves of his wing in there, and then all DC things seem to have an outline around them, so we did that too. And then the beauty of this logo was, it was not designed to ever be the same. It was designed to take on the property of whatever it needed to be. It was designed to make you feel like you could do anything with it. I love that one. Feel like you could do anything with it. And so this was our vision. And we wanted them to start using the DC logo front and center, which they don't. And we wanted it to be able to be, well, they didn't. They're starting to. They're great. They're so smart and so into it, and they cared so much. Here it is on packaging. Here's Zack Snyder wearing it on a t-shirt. Here it is on socials. Bleep, blop, blurp. There's Batman signal. And then they started actually implementing it.
Task force of the most dangerous people on the planet.
For things like
Worst of the worst.
Suicide Squad, or their games. And it's starting to, it's only been around, it's been less than a year, but it's starting to really like get its muscle going. Like logos are never logos until they've been used for a while, until they've lived in the world and you've tried them out and you've seen what they can do. A logo is not just a thing plunked on a piece of paper. It has to have a life of its own. It has to have a soul. Here are the new ones that they're doing for the Justice League. My favorite, the Wonder Woman one, where her in the middle. And speaking of the Justice League, because of DC, they asked us to do the logo for the Justice League. I never thought that I was going to be this person, doing logos for big, giant comic book movies with like Ben Affleck in a Batman suit. But anyway, we looked at the history of Justice League, and one of them sort of caught our eye as feeling very right and very strong. So this is the logo that it became. This one they wanted a star in. So there's a star in this. And then, of course, because it's DC, it has to be chiseled out of something. Here it is at Comic-Con. Here it is, again, we said, let us make a typeface so you can use it in the film. And they said, again, okay. But again, it's just I don't want to let go. I want to keep my hand in all the pies. But the nice thing about the typeface is you were able to sort of tell the story of the identity without actually even using the logo. And speaking of the Justice League, this is the Wonder Woman premiered, and this is the new logo, the film version of the logo for before movies. And I'm just going to ask, if I don't want to sound conceited here, but if anyone is taking pictures or tweeting or anything, please don't mention that I'm about to show you this, because the movie doesn't premiere till tomorrow. So I shouldn't really be showing you this today. And I also want to say, we worked on this a little bit. Someone else I had a different vision for what this should be. But this is the new animated DC logo. Maybe. Oh, yes it is. No. That's kind of a rough cut still of it. I don't know what the final one is. And then lastly, just because, if all of this is because, this is because all of that, because of a certain zeitgeist, because of a certain willingness to sort of throw yourself into something that you don't fully know. I got a call one day from a guy who had an idea for a product I can do this in 4 minutes, who had an idea for a product that was sort of in its infancy. I sort of like to think of it as alcohol at the end of Prohibition. And he wanted to do packaging for cannabis. And I was interested. I still did not yet know who he was. But I'm very pro legalization of marijuana. I'm not a super duper user, but you know. And so that guy turned out to be Snoop Dogg. This is a picture that I took when we went on a trip to a grow with him after we got the job. And so they had this idea that they wanted to sort of make this product that would be, who better? Who has more? Snoop, Willie Nelson, Miley Cyrus? That's sort of the, top tier. So they had this idea that they wanted to do a cannabis product, but they didn't want it to be super hempy or super Rasta-y. They wanted it to feel modern and new and kind of like a luxury brand for watches or jewelry. And the idea is that because of the way the cannabis world is changing, you go to a dispensary in Colorado, or I guess here in Canada, and there's a grandma sitting next to a college dude. Like, it's a very wide open and very diverse group of users. So we did a bunch of research, as we always do. I cannot express enough how much, I could spend all my time doing the research. It's the fun stuff, like looking back at what the history of cannabis was. And again, they didn't ask us to do this. We wrote up a whole history of cannabis and the story of how it went legal and was legal and then not legal. And they were actually like, oh. So we sort of looked at the history of how cannabis was portrayed. And we also met with Snoop. And he said, it's got to be cool, and it's got to feel like a California vibe. It's got to be me. I said, is there anything else that you specifically want us to know, Mr. Dog? And he said, I don't know. I want you to just take the best parts of me and the best parts of California and dibble and dabble and do what you do. Now, I also have to say 2 things. Before we got this job, there was no way I thought we were getting this job. There was no way that I thought that they were going to hire Pentagram, middle-aged white lady, to do their cannabis brand, as opposed to cool hipster branding company in LA where they are located. But I met with Ted Chung, who is Snoop's manager, and he and I hit it off really well. And they really wanted a brand. They really wanted something that felt like someone had thought about it and that had some identity behind it. And so we presented a bunch of things, but the thing that, Snoop kept talking about warmth and sun and sunrises, and he likes diamonds, and he likes bling, and he's also totally exactly who he is. There's no artifice there, and he's charming and wonderful, and he knows what he wants, and he knows who he is, and again, that's the best kind of client. So we took all of that and made an emerald faceted cannabis leaf that was just abstract enough to not be too hempy and to sort of make you feel a little bit comfortable. And then we added the type, Leafs by Snoop. And the cool thing about Leafs by Snoop is it's also LBS, which is pounds, which is a good way to purchase your weed. And so we went and we looked and we showed them that this identity could be used in all different ways, with a French inhale or with a sunset, or just, that it could be multitudes. Again, that's my shtick. You could take something, you can do anything with it, you panic about whether you're doing it right, and you never let go of a good client once you find them. Those are my 3 things. We looked at, packaging for different kinds of, but there's so many rules and laws about what you can and cannot do with cannabis. Like literally, it's changing by the hour. So you have to design something. One, it has to be opaque, child-proof, and you have to be able to change the information easily. So we also did a bunch of swag for them. And then we ended up doing the product that looked like this. And the idea behind the product is that it's clean, and it's white, and it's bright, and it looks like perfume. And when you open it up, there's a reveal. There's like unboxing is a thing on Instagram. So you unbox this, and you reveal this sort of California cool thing that's hidden underneath. Every box is different. Well, not every box, but like 9 different boxes. You don't know what you're going to get. And then we had this idea that we'd put a sticker in it, and we asked Snoop to write phrases down and that we would use them, and so he did. And then we also asked him we thought it would be really funny if there was like an instruction booklet that came with it. And we asked him to write some instructions for us, and he's awesome. And then this was the idea, we wanted to hide that it comes in this giant pill box, so we put that inside the box, we hid it. And again, that allowed us to be able to comply with the legal things. Also, because if you're making a new package, there's 9 months of legal back and forth to get it. So this way, we took the old package and just put it in a box. And we also did chocolates, edibles, and gummies, which we named dog treats. And when you leave the store, you get a doggy bag. Then we did shatter and wax. And the other thing we did was we created this paisley pattern, because Snoop loves paisley. We made it all out of cannabis things. And we did the website and all their socials and jugs and grinders. We did not design the grinders. They just put our logo on them. This was a tasting that we went to. It's very nerve-wracking, let me tell you, to just walk that line of what is, what is cool. And I will say, my favorite thing about this, there he is, and this is what the display would look like in a dispensary. When we finished presenting to him, he got on the phone and said, because it was a call, and he said, "First thing I want to say, you a funky bitch." And I was like, that is going on my book or tombstone, whichever comes first. And then the other thing is another logo we presented. We are also very into economy. We presented this logo as an option. It was supposed to be like the Mercedes-Benz peace sign cannabis thing, and they liked that too. And they have this other venture called Mary Jane, so we ended up just sort of transitioning that logo into Mary Jane, which is the who, what, where, when, and why for cannabis on the web. And then also there's this thing called Funk Sack, which you put your weed in and it doesn't smell. And so who knew that I'd be working on funk sax. But also, Ted had a necklace made for Snoop of the Mary Jane logo, which makes me no end of pleased. And we just finished this. This is my last thing. We just finished doing this with them. Another, so you remember LBS, right? Leaves by Snoop, pounds. Pounds. It is a new line of, and it's designed to be sort of a window that we can do a different way of looking at sort of cool, bright things. You want to guess? What is it? Snoop named them all. There's mothership, battleship, rocket ship, starship, and spaceship. In conclusion, you never know. Like, you start out doing film independent, and you end up designing, well, we didn't design the bongs, but we did put the logos, and there's a hidden little starship on each one. And also this happened, which is, and he does do all his tweeting himself, so he liked a tweet. I was like, also good. That is the end of my talk, but I do want to say, I obviously don't do any of this alone, and I have a wonderful team who works really hard, and these are the names of the people who worked on all the stuff that you just saw, both strategy and language and animation and thinking and weed testing, and they are a pleasure to work with, and they make my job better every day.